All right, welcome to another episode of the High Performance Podcast. We've got a long requested guest, Didier Vassou, and we're finally completing our Infinity Stone quest of getting all the Melbourne strength culture coaches on. Obviously, now we have a new target. We don't. Because we actually have to get James on now. I just realized
you got one more to go.
The fucking Infinity Gauntlet. You bloody added to it. So anyway, we got to let him build up his podcasting reps, and then we'll get him on as well. Also joined by my co-host Jacob the Mosquito.
I'm back.
Who's actually was being coached by Didier with nutrition. Didier was the one who got Jacob shredded. If there was anyone who was sort of wondering about that, or we sort of talked about that on the show before. Yeah. So Didier's strong as fuck. He's also nutritious as fuck. So we're going to ask him all sorts of questions about getting shredded for performance, maybe like the lifestyle components of it as well, sustainability, but then also how do you rip a fucking 300 kilo deadlift on a stiff bar? Because that's some crazy shit as well. Anyway, welcome to the show, Didier Vassou. My first question for you is, how'd you get into lifting weights?
First up, thanks for having me.
No worries.
I've jumped in and out of the potty over the years. I think probably listened from even before I'd even met you in person. So yeah, cool to nice. Be on from way back. But yeah, in terms of lifting weights, started in year 12, just jumping in the weights room at lunchtime. Pretty quickly realized I loved it. Started, I'd lift weights at lunchtime, then I'd go home after school and lift weights more there. I just loved it. Couldn't get enough of it. And then yeah, just kept moving more in the weightlifting direction.
Did you have a gym in your school?
Yes, we had a school gym.
That's pretty sick.
Very grateful. We had a couple of the teachers who'd open it up for us. Maybe 3 times a week. They'd jump off their lunch break to supervise us and open up the gym. So very, very grateful that we had that. And it was a pretty cool setup. Like I remember at the time, people would like talk shit about it because the equipment was pretty old. But looking back, like it was a mad setup. Like we had a powerlifting fucking proper bench. Like we had a bunch of machines, like everything you needed. It was mad. And I think I've always been someone who's had an appreciation for older things. Some of the dumbbells, they were proper like 80 spec, like just the dumbbells had a rattle to them. Just you don't find that shit everywhere. Yeah. So the fact that it was old actually was the good part. Yeah, typical kids.
Talk sets and reps to me. Are we talking 4x10 bro split from Simply Shredded, or?
To be honest, I never dabbled in the bro split. I think I was a bit too.
What the fuck are you doing?
I know, bro. Too much thinking. No, I think I had some influence from like the Omar Isufs and such of the world pretty early on. So yeah, I think it was just pretty much into like push pull legs or upper lower, whatever it might have been. So I can't say I've ever actually done a bro split. I've never done an arm day, never done a leg day. It's always just been a bit of a mix. Whether that's right or wrong, hard to say. But yeah, got influenced at an early age, I'd say, in a different direction.
I feel like there's such a generation gap whenever I talk to anyone who didn't come in just simply shredded bro splitting. Like regardless of what their goals were, if they were a little bit more performance oriented even, like you dodge that. Because and that's it. Like I watched the whole Omar Isuf thing at the start and like, yeah, I just wish he got there first before the simply shredded stuff. It wasn't even that bad. Okay, interesting. And what was the early progress like? Like, did you feel like you're a responder and you're like, oh, fuck, I've got a knack for this? Like fucking linear progression's going pretty good. Well, what was happening there by the end of year 12?
I'd say pretty decent. I think, fairly soon I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like this is something I enjoy, something I can push. Definitely on reflection, made the mistake of shredding hard in year 12, like probably 6 months into lifting, thought, you know what? I need to go on a cut. And I probably started in like the high 70s and then like got down to like 71. Didn't need to be 71 kilos. Like, yeah, I was the same height I am now. Like really didn't need to be 71 kilos, but that's probably year 12 is probably the most aggressive I've dieted ever in my life. There was like a term, I think it was term 3, every lunchtime, 4 bean mix, tuna and fucking balsamic vinegar.
Dude, I swear that was I did it. Yeah, that was the same culture in our school. Like just everyone in year 12 wanting to diet. It was crazy.
How was the brain fog heading into finals?
I don't know how I did it. Honestly, I don't know how I did it, but we did it. Yeah, fucking started counting calories, all that good stuff. Probably like sub 2,000. Got shredded. Just there wasn't a lot of me, so it was pretty fucking small. But other than that, yeah. After that, I think I gave up on trying to be lean and just got bigger for sure.
So what did you do education wise? Did you do the typical like sports science route, or you went to like Cert 3-4 or after school? Or?
Cert 3-4. Yeah. So I was doing a
Cert of Kings.
Cert of Kings, that's right. I was doing a Bachelor of Arts, majoring in politics, and straight out of I was fairly academic in school, but straight out of high school, I was like, Mum, I'm done with studying. I want to be a personal trainer. And she's like, no, let's go to uni. I'm like, all right. And
because I was going to say, what was the career vision with politics?
I saw myself. Yeah. No, I saw myself working maybe somewhere in the public sector, public policy. Never panned out. Here we are now. But that's where I wanted to head in that sort of direction. But yeah, I was like hell bent. Like straight of year 12 was done. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to become a personal trainer. But Mum's like, nah, go to uni. Like pushing that direction. So I went there, did my first year, and then second year, I'm like, you know what? Nah, there's something there. I want to move in the fitness direction. So I started doing it alongside the degree, and then come third year, got the 3-hour initial shift from Jamie Smith. I'm like, that's it. I'm not going back to uni next year. And then here we are. So that was enough for me to give up on the degree. And then and it's funny, in those early days, I probably would have done probably would have moved in the sports science direction. That's what I thought I'd do. I'm like, I'll do my Cert 3-4 and then maybe I'll move over to sports science. But mentor Jamie Smith was like, oh, who do you want to work with? I'm like, general pop, powerlifting, strength training. He's like, don't go to uni. Just you'll be right. And then here we are.
What a savior.
Based. So based. I fucking hated all the trainers who had sports science degrees when I was working at Fitness First. They used to think they were so much better than me. I was like, mate, we're here. We're in the same room. You get to write sports science degree on your little PT board. I'm like, no one's going to the fucking boards looking for a coach. You meet them anyway.
Yeah,
God, I've never got over it, as you can tell.
Yeah. I don't like to, shit on certain routes because I know I didn't go there. I can't tell you the pros and cons, but I think there's definitely an element of that. Or for some people who we're at like a bit of a...
It's 4 more years of your parents thinking that you're going somewhere before they realize what it is.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, it's more for the parents trainers.
Yeah, I think there definitely is an element of that for sure.
My son did a bachelor's. It's like sort of a guilty thing that you do because they forked out so much money for school, but... yeah. Could you go over like how I think you missed a little part on how you got to see Jamie. Like, I feel like that's pretty important to disclose. Like, was it through socials or?
Yeah. So, it was 2017. I did my first powerlifting comp, and then after that, I'm like, oh, that was good. Keen to do more of that. I'll get a coach. And then strength culture was the second place I kind of inquired to. First place didn't end up panning out. And it was funny because in Melbourne, like Moorabbin is not that close to where I grew up. I had no idea where Moorabbin was. Like if you had asked me, I'm like,
I want to guess the other place, but I feel
somewhere
like
near St Kilda. Well, back then there wasn't a lot of there actually wasn't a lot going on in terms of like powerlifting gyms and stuff like that. So I literally was like Googling, like, oh, that Melbourne strength culture place, and it's because I was working nearby at a group training gym in Oakley, which is like the bordering suburb. I'm like, oh, Moorabbin, that's actually kind of close to where I'm going. Maybe I'll check that out. So I came in. Just wanted to do powerlifting, and then got coached by Charles initially, did the internship, and then ended up working out.
And because I mean, I don't know, I've watched you over the years, and I just feel like I watched you turn from like an average lifter into someone where I'm just like, fuck, this cunt is pretty fucking strong.
Look, I'm still average, maybe a little bit above average, but we've got plenty of work to do.
And I know what you're referring to because I know what the world records are, right? And that's when you gain ultimate fucking perspective. But to random cunts in the gym, and even people who are pretty serious about their lifting, or even just people who aren't like balls deep in powerlifting, 300 kilo deadlift. Well, and this is the thing, because you have to even be into powerlifting to understand the difference between 300 kilos on a fucking stiffy and then 300 kilos on the fucking noodle bar 3000. You get it to your knees before the plates have peeled off the floor.
I do have to say,
so different.
I do have to say that I think, in tested powerlifting, we can wear our deadlifts with a bit of badge of honor because the stiff bar's tough. There's no way around it. Like it's
might as well be nailed to the floor.
Well, the thing is though, because being obviously always in that kind of tested powerlifting world, like I don't know any different. I've used a deadlift bar like twice ever. Like it's just all I've known. So obviously, if you come from the deadlift bar world, then move across to the stiff bar, you're gonna notice some difference. But for me, it's just deadlifting. It's all I've ever done. So yeah. But I appreciate the respect for the big stiff bar deadlifts.
I've been on a deadlift bar, and like I'm someone who is a little bit weak off the floor. Maybe my starting position shit. Maybe it's just the way I'm built. But hook gripping as well, because it's so thin. It's almost as thin as like the women's weightlifting bar. So hook grip, unstoppable. And then the flex on top of that. It's just like fucking, and even that, like I really hate the powerlifting stiff bar. And I think this is why I have such respect for its power, because the stiff Alico bar has an extra mil on a men's Olympic weightlifting bar. So anytime I wrap my hands around, I'm just like, fucking jeez. Like it feels like putting a squat bar on or something. Yeah.
It's crazy how much difference that meal makes. Like it sounds like nothing, but you grab it like, oh, right, this is a different bar for sure.
Yeah, I haven't worked up the courage to. I mean, it's 2025. I feel like I've earned the right to have a clean and jerk on the women's bar if I want to, but it still just sort of feels like one of those things where I might never take a backward step from it.
Also, you think that if you use the women's bar, you'd never stop. You'd just be on the women's bar.
Like that economy that you get with the whip in the dip and drive, it's just fucking insane. Anyway, back to your lift, sort of talk about how many competitions have you done, or how long's your powerlifting career been is probably a bit better of a mark, because you've sort of played the long game with your powerlifting. We'll get into the specifics of that in a sec.
Did my first comp in 2017. I think I've probably done 8 or 9 comps at the moment. Not super frequent. Like had a couple years there where I didn't compete, always with the intention of coming back. But yeah, at this point I'm doing roughly 1 a year. So yeah, it ends up.
And what was that? Like, did your comp total progression start to slow down, or were you just like, I'm just going to goal set and I know I'm not going to hit these numbers in the next sort of year, so let's do this extended off season? Was it changes in the way? Because I know whether you even need an off season is like a conversation in powerlifting. Like what off season training fucking looks like. Do you do SBD? Do you don't? So talk about what was the decision leading up to your first legit powerlifting off season, and like reflections on it and things like that.
Yeah, so hadn't really seen much of a drop off. The last comp I had done before taking a bit of a break was 2019 junior nats, and I probably would have wanted to do 2020 junior nats, and obviously COVID, no one competed that year. So once, like, we're still going to, training powerlifting focus into COVID, and it was like, oh yeah, it's going to be in this month. There was always this pushback, and then it just never fucking happened that year. And so once that was done, and I knew that, okay, we're not really doing any comps this year, I thought I'd move a little bit more in the body comp, bodybuilding direction. Long story short, wanted to put more muscle in my frame. So I worked with Jeff from 3DMJ for a couple of years, probably 2.5 years there. Very, very bodybuilding focused. Like nutrition wise, training was very just typical bodybuilding type stuff. Purely because I thought that was a bit of an area for improvement for myself. So that was the main focus for a couple of years there. But it was never that I didn't want to go back to powerlifting. It was like, if I can come back, with a bit more muscle in my frame, that should help things out once I come back around. Because I think part of the reason as well was going back to the never being on a bro sprint. I did get into like very like powerlifting focused training at a pretty young age. I just didn't have that, multiple years of just like broing out. So I'm like, I think I could use a bit of that and then come back around before we continue trying to push the strength. But I always wanted to keep powerlifting as the main focus.
And I don't know if you touched on this. So was it like no fucking SBD? No skill work when you were doing this, or was it just all machine squatting and then, because what I want to know, like, I know you put on a bunch of muscle and like recomped well, but was it like this instant thing when you get back into the specific work where you're like, fuck, I am cooking with this new muscle, or is there a fair bit of a transition period?
Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of skill work. There were like deadlift variations, like maybe a stiff leg or a snatch group deadlift. And for squats, probably the most specific thing I did was like an SSB squat. But yeah, not super specific technique wise. And honestly, for not doing any like really specific work for a good 2.5 years, coming back, like it was pretty quick, to be fair. Like I didn't, necessarily surpass what I'd done before like that, but to get back to basically, matched PBs was pretty quick. Like honestly, within probably 3 months, I felt like I was able to hit things that I'd done before, and then obviously start building up from there.
Was the decision made because you had such a solid foundation of like SBD work and technique work? Like, would you, like, let's say for you as a coach, would you ever do that for a lift that is visibly not as built?
So
like completely neglect SBD?
I don't think you'd need to completely remove the SBD side of things. You can power build, have that blend, do a bit of both. And I think the reality is for most people who are driven by the power lifts, and that's where they like to push their training. For most of them, if you say, hey, go away, don't do any SBD for 2 years and come back, they're just going to quit lifting because what they enjoy about lifting is the big lifts. And for me, that's the case too. Like if I had to pick, like gun to your head, would you rather jump on a barbell or machine? I'm always picking the barbell. It's what I enjoy. But I saw for myself that there'd be some benefit in moving away from the barbell and coming back around.
You're not hack squatting in your dreams.
Correct. There's no
you're clanging and banging. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like when you're a kid, like you'll dream of like, you know, scoring a buzzer beater or you picture the scoreboard. Like, yeah, for me, that's a deadlift. It's not a hack squat. I have to force myself to do them. But like I think for most people, that's just a blend is going to be the better approach versus completely moving away. In theory, it would work, but I think just part of it as well of what we see is that people need to bring, you know, a bit of oomph, a bit of gusto to their training. And people who like the power lifts often, if those power lifts aren't there, effort just drops off. It's just not the same. They don't attack their training with that same sort of focus that they otherwise would.
Because what I wanted to ask about as well, I've been toying with this idea. I fucked my shoulder. So that obviously put my bench progress on hold. And I know for me, like I'm such a noob when it comes to bench press. I was just neglecting upper body training when I was an Olympic weightlifter. So I was like, I just need to put in a good stint on benching. And then, but I keep being in mixed minds of sort of like, no, I need to learn how to bench press. But then there's another part of me, I'm like, it's not that deep. You're laying on your back pressing a bar. Because I rehabbed my shoulder in the Smith machine. I was like, a few less degrees of freedom. I mean, to be fair, I don't even know if it helped. I think it was obviously just like taking things a little bit lighter. But then now that my shoulder's good, I'm like, should I just keep cranking Smith machine until I'm just, you know, cranking huge numbers in the Smith machine? I'll be able to throw myself back down on the bench and just hit PBs. Or what would you do if you were me? And what was your experience with the getting back into barbell benching, comp specific benching after the off season?
Yeah. So I think that thought process you have definitely checks out. The key is though, I think that works more so the better just technical foundation you have with bench. So for myself, even currently now, since October, I haven't been doing any comp specific benching. It's all been close group, very like non-powerlifting focused. Say mid-year, whenever I decide to move back in that powerlifting direction, I'm fairly confident that give me a block or two, we'll be cooking with gas. Just specifically from a technique standpoint, I don't think we're going to run into any problems there. If you don't have that solid foundation already and you just haven't had, and I think a big thing that it comes down to is just sets per week. How many sets per week of like if that's what you want to go towards, a powerlifting style bench press, have you consistently done over time? If you've got that foundation, you can jump out of it and come back and be fine. But if you haven't really, it has got to a place where you've got a really efficient bench press down pat. So I'd say for you, that's probably the first thing to that's the first thing to address. Obviously, putting some more muscle in your frame, building general strength, all that stuff helps. But like, there's plenty of people who I coach or have coached who bigger upper bodies than me, way more muscular, definitely have built that base, but I bench more than them. And I don't have the biggest bench in the world, but like they just need to get better at benching. And what I have over a lot of your average gym goers is I'm just good at the skill of bench pressing. So, you know, despite not having the biggest upper body, I know how to bench well for moving heavy weights. Like that, there's definitely a big component of that for sure.
Do you? I've never really paid attention to your ROM when you're benching. I imagine based on your deadlift, it's not that small. You don't have a crazy arch. Your arms can't be that short. You're pretty barrel chested.
On a good day, I try to arch as much as I can, you know, use as much leg drive as I can, but yeah, I've got pretty long arms, so it's never going to be this crazy, you know, short Noriega spec. But part of that as well is the technical foundation. Like I didn't always have as efficient of a bench. Like it definitely takes time, even with long arms, even, you know, not being the most mobile, flexible person, whatever you want to call it, to get to that position. And that is also a big area for improvement for a lot of people. I think.
Did you have a journey of like increasing grip width and then bringing it back in? I've sort of seen a lot of this just arise as a discussion as well. And I think it's an ongoing theme in powerlifting, right? It's the same as like, all right, you're doing sumo. You just throw your toes out till they're touching the plates. But for me, I really think about it with the bench press because I see a lot of longer arm people adopt the wide grip approach, but do you have any thoughts or experiences with it?
I'd say anecdotally, most people end up finding success with a wider grip. Like that's just what ends up happening.
ROM
most people
sucks.
just naturally gravitate. ROM sucks. ROM sucks. We're in the business of removing ROM. You'll get certain people who just are a little bit more tricep dominant, who definitely not me, like 100% not me, who can, go for that more like mid grip bench, and that's definitely their strongest position. But yeah, I'd say if you were to guess, for most people, chances are put your hands as wide as you can get them. That's most of the time going to be the best strategy for sure.
Right.
But
so if you're long limbed
the thing is,
and you don't have like a visible tricep hang, it's like you're not that guy.
Exactly, you're not that guy. You're not that guy. The other thing as well, though, that when you see some of those like crazy bench setups that they look like they've crazy arch, like super wide grip. What they're often doing is like heaps of IR, like people call it like the Jap grip, like just super turning it in. Like I can't do that. I mean, I could. It just my wrists feel like shit. So I've never really tried that.
Where would the elbows even go? Like out there or
super wide? Yeah, with those sorts of
doesn't it,
with those sorts
Jacob,
of grips.
I think in theory it allows you to have like your wrist out there, but because when you internally rotate, it puts like your hand inside your wrist, so you can like cheat the width almost.
Yeah, because there's a max. There's a line. There's a line in the bar where you have to have covered. There's a ring, but if my fingers are here, but I turn like this, my elbows are out here. But as long as I'm covering the ring, I'm meeting the rules, obviously. So people do stuff like that. But once again, it's one of those things where like most people won't do that. The people will self-select. They'll try it once and be like, oh yeah, this feels all right. Or most people probably try it and it feels like shit, and they're like, I'm just not going to do that. I don't care that much about benching.
Do you also feel like the tucking thing came back as a huge cue recently as well? And I think it sort of came off the back of like the science-based how to wrap your pecs around a rib cage. Like everyone sort of started talking about like dumbbell pressing with much more tucked shoulders and things like that. And I've seen powerlifters do it, which is interesting because when I came into when I became aware of powerlifting, everyone was like, tuck your shoulders because Louis Simmons says it. But then everyone's like, oh, wait, bench shirts. It's not. Triceps aren't the primary mover in our bench. Man, obviously, they're using equipment, but then it's almost sort of gone full circle to a lot of people advocating for the tuck.
For sure. It's actually crazy, man, how many, they're still around, but particularly 5-10 years ago, how many ideas around training, cues, technical approaches, whatever it might be, stem from the fact that before 12 years ago, basically all powerlifting was done equipped, and the game is just different when it's just different. Like the whole sitting back, that's from I'm sitting back into a squat suit. Like you have to sit back into it, or just the emphasis on triceps. Obviously, triceps are important for powerlifting, but like if you'd ask Louis Simmons, rest in peace to the GOAT, triceps are everything. But yes, they are when you're in a bench shirt, because that's when you actually have to start doing work. Before then, you're just riding the shirt. So yeah, there's lots of things like that, even the tuck where there's that, but I think part of it as well is that the sample size 10, 15, 20 years ago of people that were powerlifting, I think there was just a lot of huge, stocky, geared up dudes doing powerlifting, and there's just things that work for them that maybe don't work for everyone. Like, you'd hear Mark Bell back in the day being like, oh, you're going to tuck your elbows into your lats and bench. It's like, Mark, no, I can't do that. My lats aren't fucking hanging out here. Like, this is just not going to happen, man. Like, we're not the same person.
Is that what the lats thing is? It's just like super jacked people, huge fucking backs. And it's like their humerus does to an extent run into their lats. Or do you reckon there's something for like normal to skinny people there as well?
I think it's that, man, but I think another part of it is just the fact that they were benching in suits and they literally had to pull the bar into themselves. Like, they're just, once again, back in the day, this overemphasis on the importance of like your back for benching and like talking about benching with your back and all this stuff. It's just, having a big back, it's going to do something for you, but we are benching with our pressing muscles. Yeah. Like the back is not. It's a press. It's a press. Yeah. Like be in a good position, hold good shape, but your back is not actively doing the movement. it's not the driver of the movement.
If you want to learn more about the general physical preparation training philosophy, we put together an extremely practical course covering all the different aspects of physical preparation, as well as a unit on programming, so you know how to tie it all together and produce the same world-class results that we get with our athletes. We've got pre-recorded lectures, a community page where you can ask questions and interact with the other GPP coaches, as well as monthly calls where you can ask questions live or just catch up and hang out with us. Check out the link in the show notes for more info. Anyway, back to the show. Do you know about Agata Sitko?
What?
I do.
7 SBD days. What the fuck's doing with that?
7 SBD days?
Oh.
I mean, I get the logic. Specificity is king.
Holy shit.
Specificity, total work.
Look, she's probably the most gifted lifter ever. And I just want to.
Do you think is she more gifted than any man ever? Because I'm trying to think who's the most gifted male powerlifter.
Does she have a crazy total?
Hack. Oh
yeah, man. She's totaled like over 600 in the 69.
Oh
like
my god!
She benched 165 at 70. No, was it lighter than 71 kilos? It's like it's big dog numbers.
Yeah, like just getting mogged.
What? Yeah. It's she's like there's no words to describe how good she is. However,
she's the truth.
My gut, my default with all that stuff is she is the absolute 1% of the 1% of the 1%. All props to her. She's done well, but I think there's only so much we get by looking at what she does. She is. You are not her. That's just where my mind. But on top of that, with some of the prize money that's currently on grabs, and she's winning everything. She's a full-time powerlifter. She doesn't have a job. She lifts. She competes.
Okay, that's a huge detail. I didn't put that together. Oh my god, the money. You got to follow the money.
That's it. And she's genuine. She's one of the few people who like can just. She's putting more into powerlifting than you could possibly put in. It's literally a full-time job for her. So
the full split is SBD, no job. 7-day SBD, no job. 7-day SBD with job is like, what are you fucking doing?
Yeah. Like I think you'd struggle to find someone who's had, that amount of recovery resources as well as genetics put towards just what can we do? What can the body do? Like all these other people, the vast majority of them. Got kids, they work, they're studying, whatever it is. Like it's a different ball.
CNS only receives stress from SBD. That is like insane.
That's it.
Like I'd imagine that's all she has to only be doing like RP 6-7 every day. Like you're not touching anywhere close to failure. Surely, like every.
Yeah, I don't know too much about her training, but I imagine it would be pretty varied. You're not pushing.
Just going through the motions. I feel like doing that much, but yeah.
Yeah. It was sort of interesting because I heard her get interviewed about it and about how she made the decision with her coach, and like apparently they were on the beers when they decided to have a crack at it. And it was like they were already doing 6 SBDs. And I think they're like, oh, do we just do it for the bit? But the biggest thing for me, because it was like the way that they arrived at the decision. I was like, all right, it was obviously like it wasn't that much of a change from what they were really doing, so still lines up principally with how I think about good training. But just the idea that she doesn't have as much going on externally. Like I hear stories about, I just know a couple of powerlifters with jobs, like laboring jobs and stuff like that. I think Thomas Lilly's always talking about, it's not Robert Whittaker. Fuck, what is it? That's the MMA fighter. Someone Whittaker it is. But yeah, just like has a hard labor job and just still putting in the reps and stuff like that. So I can kind of see it's like just treating SBD like your actual job. It is a pretty straightforward program at the end of the day. What are you running as a go? Like, what are you recommending these days? Or is it not really like that? Do you go full emerging strategies on people and experiment with frequency? Or do you feel like you have general recommendations?
Look, there's definitely some general recommendations that we would stick to, but at the same time, we definitely have a big flavor of that emerging strategies approach, but to a degree, that taken to its full capacity isn't what we do, but there's definitely a flavor of that for sure. Like, it sounds pretty simple, but we'll start with who they are, what they're currently doing. Can we get them doing maybe a bit more than that if need be? Do we need to do more than that? Sometimes often it's not the case. The big one, if we're talking frequency, is bench. Like bench, particularly for lighter weight class people and women, like definitely like most people can just be benching more days, more sets. Like that's the one thing that I across the board pretty much always push. Squats and deadlifts, like, 1 to 2 times a week. It's rare that we'd push more than that, but yeah, bench is the big one where frequency really is a big one for sure.
How do I work out the intent of each workout when I am doing? So I imagine you got 2 days a week bench, heavy day, light day. Or maybe not, I don't know. Sean Noriega convinced me otherwise that I'm doing, I have just both of them the same now, like hit a top set and then back offs. But let's talk to me about 3 per week.
Honestly, man, the way I think about it, I don't really, I wouldn't, as I'm writing a program, I'm not thinking about what is the focus of this day. I'm also thinking we have an amount of work we want to get done. Let's split it across the days. Yeah, they might have a different flavor. Like we might be doing a longer pause on this day. We might not. We might have 3 days.
But that's more for entertainment. It's not like the mechanics of progress.
Yeah. Yes and no. Entertainment. I haven't heard that one, but there's definitely an element of that. But then the second part of it is there are certain variations that, if applied properly, help us achieve certain things. And they pretty much all just come down to good technique, lifting with control, getting consistent reps. Like that's really what most variations are. The way I'd see it, they're just a tool to allow us to get that. So yeah, we're going to have some different variations in there probably to make that happen. But at the end of the day, by far the biggest thing is just hard sets per week. Like are we doing 10 sets a week? Is our bench progressing? No, cool. Let's try and get up to 15. How do we make that work? Do we add some variations in there? How do we vary those RPEs to make it work? Like, probably the more hard sets we're doing, the less we're going to be pushing super high RPEs just to make things work. But yeah, that's pretty much the crux. I don't think it's too complicated.
I like that as well. Just hard sets per week. Keep a tab on that. Divide them up however. Again, try not to be an idiot about it and like stack one day hype. Again, there can be some light stacking of a day for, I imagine, a primary to emerge. But I like that flexibility where it's like, just get a good total amount of work. Divide it up however it suits them. It allows for a lot of individuality there. It also allows for preference.
And honestly, man, like what in the real world, dealing with real people, what almost always becomes the thought process is how many times can you train consistently over time without hating your life and without skipping days? Cool, let's work that out. How do we work it? If there's someone who I know, I can set my watch to the fact that they're going to train and be able to bench 4 days a week. Crazy. We'll program them 4 days a week. But this sounds really simplistic, but the amount of times that just the thought process is, I've given him or her bench on their 4th day, but every second week they're missing that 4th day. That is doing nothing for me. And sometimes it might just be, all right, let's front load the important shit. Get it done early in the week. If they miss that 4th day, it should be right. Like versus like, oh yeah, let's get 5 hard reps, 5 hard sets on there on day 4 that may or may not get done. Like it comes down to, in the real world, dealing with real people, logistics and scheduling. Like, are you getting the work in? No. How can we help you get the work in? Like, yeah, that's honestly where it comes down to.
When you upgrade that bench frequency from that 10 to 15, do you start to vary the intensities there? Like, do you go, okay, we'll now we'll have a low day, or is like, no, you're just hitting 15 hard sets, like they're all hard?
Like, if we define hard sets as somewhere between an RPE 6 and 9, as long as we're in that ballpark, we're good. If we're averaging RPE 9, we're probably working too hard. If your average RPE is 6, we're probably not working hard enough. If we're somewhere in that middle park, there's going to be some RPE 6s in there. There's going to be some RPE 9s. Like it's not, if you're already averaging a 7 to 8 RPE, we don't have to change anything. Like it's only if you're someone who's like really pushing that intensity just way too much, we might want to pull you back, but there's a big ballpark where we can work in for sure.
My insecurities won't let me do sets at 6 RPE.
I find it hard.
It just means the weights are so low. I'm like, people are looking at me. I seem like I'm a pussy. Like, sorry, I need to get over this. I need to.
If you don't have a plate on that bar, fuck.
I'm not that much of a bitch.
Sorry. Okay.
Look, here's
Out Jacob.
Who'd do that? Not me.
Here's the thing. I'm not trying to advocate for RPE 6 work. I'm not like, oh yeah, you got to make sure you manage it. But if we have a couple in there, she'll be right. But like, and often how that works practically is we ramp sets up. It might be RPE 6, 7, 8. So we're not living in RPE 6 world. That's just our first working set before we build up. And don't
be afraid to tell me I need to remain open to RPE 6 because I'm closed off to it right now. But I'm only doing, let's say 2.5 frequency.
The reason I would get you to consider not necessarily strictly an RPE 6, but sets done on the lower side of that ballpark we want to live in is if we want to make changes to our technique, if we need to, we don't necessarily need to, but if we do need to make changes to our technique, that's probably not happening at an RPE 9. At RPE 9, we're in fight or flight, get this weight up, I just need to push. It doesn't mean we need to go to, RPE 3, but there's a sweet spot there where it's challenging, but we can actually adjust things when we can be somewhat cerebral and not just like push. Like if we can live in push land because our technique's down pat, crazy. But if we have some things we need to adjust, coming back slightly some of the week, there's merit to that.
Interesting. Fuck's sake, I'm so weak. All right, should we talk about nutrition for a bit? Jacob, did you have any pressing powerlifting questions?
I got the first nutrition question though.
Crazy.
Is it about protein sparing modified fast?
No.
Okay, well,
just quickly on that one. I had a gentleman sign up with me about 7 weeks ago. Online client from Sydney, great first block weapon. Wants to dad of 2, gets up at 5 a.m. to get his SBD and just
respect.
In the back and forth of just those initial setups, phone calls, chatting goals. He drops on me that he did a protein modified fast. And firstly, I'm thinking, man, what are we doing? But secondly, I'm like, I'm going to be able to throw anything at this guy and he's going to be all right. Like,
he's
as much as I would
man's
never
been stress tested.
I wouldn't get anywhere near that. I could not be fucked, but I'm like, he's going to be all right. And then he goes on to tell me, like, I never miss sessions. I'm like, you know what? I believe you. Like, I think you're telling me the truth right now. And he's like, yeah, it gets a bit cooked, get a little bit lightheaded. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you do. Like, far out.
I'm the worst fat loss coach. I've over the last 6 weeks, it's just been a little obsession of mine. And anytime, because I don't help anyone with weight loss really. I help a few people with the performance side of nutrition, but it's really just recommendations. But I'll just be in the gym or even just at the pub. So someone's like, oh, I'm just trying to get my shred on. I'm like, you heard of a protein sparing modified fast? They're like, no, what's that? I'm like, all right, so let's pretend you're so obese that you've been hospitalized. It's basically a modification of that protocol. But because my mate, he's just been doing a shred. And I love the way, when I see a civilian who's just got their shit together with fat loss, I love it because I'm like, oh, what are you doing? You're counting protein, you're doing this, you're that. He's like, cunt, I'm just trying to make small, steady changes. I'm just focusing on not pigging out on snacks at night. I'm like, man, this guy's better than fucking every single person who's better than me sort of thing. But he's so he's been coming down. He's lost 11 kilos or at least 8 kilos, but he wants to get back into double digits and he's 2-3 kilos off. And I was like, do you want to be there by the end of the week? I was just having all these thoughts.
We can get there.
So you haven't supervised anyone on a Lyle McDonald style crazy shit fast? What are your thoughts though? Are you open to, because people talk about the motivational aspect of the fast shred. Do you have any thoughts or retorts?
In terms of, so when you say the motivational aspect, in terms of it being an appropriate...
Some people justify, because I think there was this discussion of crash dieting developed a stigma. And crash dieting and losing weight fast, I guess they can be separate things, but let's lump them in together. And then other people were like, well, no, the crash diet, it's kind of okay for a lot of people because losing 5 kilos can be really motivational and it might just spur them on to sort of keep going. But I don't know, sustainability is sustainability at the end of the day. And I sort of see that we do have a weight maintenance problem, probably more than anything.
If we had to just give me a random person and tell me what...
Yeah, average person.
Just average, I'm not going to go there. But it definitely is a strategy that can work for the right person who just got their shit together from a training and nutrition and lifestyle standpoint, has a pretty good understanding of just nutritional literacy and how to make the right choices to get what they want. The reality is most people, even if they're into fitness, even if they've trained for a while, they are just not that person. Like most people do not fall into that category. And that's no like fucking value judgment. It is what it is. But as a result of that, it's just not the right tool. I've done, mini cuts, aggressive cuts with a number of people over the years, but it's usually pretty clear if they're going to be the right candidate for that. I'd say so in my experience. You're usually not like guessing as to whether if there's any doubt, you just would not push them in that direction. Yeah, or at least that's what I'd do. Obviously, different people have different strategies, but yeah, personally, I wouldn't push them in that direction if it just didn't make sense. Yeah.
And is it just that it's like there's almost no downsides to the more moderate approach, I guess, relatively speaking?
Well, there are downsides. The downsides are it just takes more time. Like that's it. The plus side is for a lot of people not having that solid foundation, the aggressive cuts unfortunately often leads to cycles of binging and restricting and rebounding. And I can tell you myself, I was there. Like I've been there, in the past 100%, which is why personally that's not something I do for myself. Because I can lose a bunch of weight in not that much time, but I'm not keeping it off. I'm rebounding hard. I'm ending up heavier than I was before. So it has to be the right tool for the right person. And then even if we think about an aggressive cut, like there's levels of how intense it can be. Like there's, let's, go hard for a month. And then there's like, no, we're committing our fucking lifestyle to this next 4 weeks. We can hear these words, mini cut, aggressive cut, like they're not all made the same. Do you know what I mean? Like there's definitely levels to it for sure.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts? Like, because that's a conversation that sort of comes up occasionally. Like eating disorders stereotypically is something that we sort of talk about affecting women much more predominantly. But then I think talking about like cutting and bulking and things like that, like, always never really being at maintenance a day in your fucking life. Is that disordered eating or is it not that deep? What's your thoughts on that?
No, 100%, man. Like, when it becomes disordered eating, like is hard to say. There's probably like a bit of a middle ground where it's like, it's kind of heading in that direction, but you're probably not quite there. But I can definitely say for myself, at the time, I probably didn't see it, but reflecting back on some of the things I've done in the past, we can probably put me in disordered eating camp. Like just, going super hard during the week, like really, really restrictive calories only, then to just blow out every weekend in terms of calorie consumption, and then just constantly being that cycle of I'm trying to lose that 5 kilos, but never really like feeling like I'm starving myself, but then overeating. So like I'm literally just like always at the same weight, but I've been dieting, but like I haven't really been like. So I definitely think it can be deep. That's the crux of it. Is it definitely can be deep, and I think unfortunately. The influence of just bodybuilding diets, practices on just the wider fitness industry is rampant. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who get pushed in directions that just don't need to be going given their goals, whether their coach is a bodybuilding coach or not. Like you just see some stuff that people end up doing. And it's like, you're doing that because you're living your life as if you're trying to get on stage when you never want to do that. So it is definitely something that I have feelings about. And if I can, hopefully, give people another option or a different way of thinking about things, like that's awesome for sure. 100%.
Continuing off of that, I think there's been sort of like a circle coming around. Bulking's good. No, just stay at maintenance. Where do you sit with this whole bulking maintenance? Like sort of conversations around you don't even need it.
Plus, Jacob, it's maintenance plus.
Maintenance
plus. You got to use the correct terminology.
I haven't heard that one.
I haven't heard that. See, Gus I think he just comes up with
no, that's what those dickheads. It's the same dickheads.
Oh, is it?
Who are saying that bulking's dead? They're like, no, what we meant was maintenance plus. Oh, like, sorry, I don't know if they're all saying that. I shouldn't fucking create more tribes.
But yeah, what are your thoughts, Dids?
Yeah, honestly, I think. Back in the day, I'd hear people say like, there's benefits to being in maintenance. I'd be like, yeah, I know, but like, I could be bulking or I could be cutting. But I fully agree that there are benefits to just sitting in maintenance. And I think, probably once again, we come back to the fact that a lot of these ideas bleed out of bodybuilding. In a bodybuilder's world, they are either building muscle or gaining fat. They're the only two things that they can be doing. If they're not doing either of those things, they're not they're not doing what they need to be doing. They aren't fulfilling their goals. So if that's what you believe, if you believe every month or week is a chance for me to be in a surplus so I can maximize muscle growth, just so I can turn it around and get in a deficit and maximize fat loss, well then, yeah, you'd think that I have to be. But it's just, for a lot of people, just shifting out of cutting to sitting at maintenance, it's not necessarily that you're like not dieting. It's just, I'll rephrase that. The benefit doesn't necessarily come because you're in a maintenance. It's just that you're not in a cut. Like you could just sit at the same calories for a year and you didn't have to bulk to see benefits from doing that. You just were able to get good training in and push hard and have a better lifestyle, because at no point were you thinking I'm dieting or I'm cutting. And yeah, obviously, if you do want to actually, maximize like muscle growth, okay, over time, you probably want to gain some weight. But like for a lot of people, they have bigger fish to fry than whether or not they're in a calorie surplus. Like, yeah, maybe being a bit of a surplus, but there's so many things that, once again, most people, there's going to be some outliers here that for them, bulking makes sense, but it's not like mandatory. It's not like if you are not bulking, you are not seeing progress. That's just not how it works. Sure.
Just going off that exact statement, do you think people just get into a bulk to just have that psychological tick in their brain as an insurance? It's like, okay, I'm building muscle sort of thing. Like they know.
I think so, man.
So
but
they
then
flip onto that one side. So they're not in this.
I'm not cutting at least, so I've got to be building muscle, but like there's no guarantee that you are. Like obviously you can be in a surplus, and being in a surplus is going to make it more likely that you build muscle. But if people actually, realize how slow the muscle building process is, if you gain 5 kilos in 6 months, I'm sorry to tell you, if you're a natural, unfortunately you did not gain much muscle. Maybe you gained a bit, but like it's body fat. It's fluid that's being held. Like that's just the reality of it. And it's not to say that you can never bulk, but yeah, to think that just because I'm bulking now, everything's going to fall into line. Like you didn't have to do that. You could have just probably sat at maintenance, pushed training hard. You'd be right.
Yeah, fuck. The GPP group program is the best deal in strength and conditioning. For less than $1 a day, you get access to my programming, as well as access to me through a group chat where you can reach out, ask questions, or have a form check. You can even get a week for free before you commit to it. Check out the show notes for more info. It's a ridiculous industry sometimes. Where are you sitting at with your protein recommendation? I mean, knowing you, weapon of a coach, is probably individualized, but where are you sitting in terms of a blanket recommendation at a population level?
Yeah, look, I'd say you hear the standard sort of like, 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight. Like for most people, if you're anywhere in that kind of range, you're going to be fine. The only times we might have issue with being on the lower end of that is potentially if there's like someone's a bit more plant-based. Sometimes it can definitely be beneficial to push it a little bit higher. And if you are like aggressively dieting, which once again, for the sake of like practical application, most people listening to this are never going to be that lean to where this becomes a problem. But if you are, aggressively dieting, okay, push your protein up a bit higher, because the risk of muscle loss obviously does pop up. But once again, practically speaking, 99% of the people we work with, unless you're a bodybuilding coach, that's not going to become an issue. And then I guess the other thought around pushing that protein intake a little bit higher is, the satiety side of things. But I feel like the fitness industry loves to talk about protein as being a tool for satiety, but then forget that it's not the only way that we can achieve satiety. Like just shifting a focus more towards whole foods, having more fiber, even having more fat, which often gets kind of forgot about, definitely is a great way to make your meal feel more satisfying. Like you can have a high fiber meal, high protein, but if there's no fat in there, you're probably going to look at it and be like, man, what did I just eat? Like this had no taste to it.
Dude, some of just like the slot bowls that people subsist on in the fitness industry. I'm a fan of a slot bowl occasionally, but I'm also like a bit of a connoisseur. Like I like to get in the kitchen, like just whip some shit up and fucking. I just wish there were more coaches just posting sick recipes and stuff like that. Like fuck your protein bowl, fuck your protein pancakes, fuck your slot bowl. Like just show me something like to get me inspired to actually get in the fucking kitchen.
Protein desserts need to go, like protein ice cream, protein cookies. Like I know Jacob will smack them sometimes and fuck, do your thing, man. But I had a client at the gym. He's like, show me all these, this range of like protein desserts. that they have at Aldi. I'm like, cool, man. Show me your day of eating. He lists everything out. Like, man, you are eating enough protein. Just have a fucking cookie. Like, you don't need to get this overpriced shit tasting fucking cookie that has, just eat a cookie, man. You'll be right.
God, the margins on those products too, that they'd be doing fucking hell. They're like $9 and you get basically 40 grams of like a protein cracker. And it's just the bag's full of air. It's like,
100%. Like, it's just,
what do we do?
It needs to go. But I'm with you, Angus. Like, I think, a lot of these things that get filtered down into the fitness community as normal, it's just a byproduct of the messaging and the lifestyles of people from a time gone past. Like, if genuinely there can be coaches who are like, yeah, I like cooking a steak. I genuinely like cooking food that actually tastes good. And you know what? I'm still in pretty good shape. I'm still kicking goals in the gym. Like, I don't need to eat like a bodybuilder and like, just fucking make my life miserable. Like what for? Like, why are we actually doing this? Like, it's just, and honestly, like for myself, if I could go back to, 4 or 5 years ago and some of the things I was doing, I was like, just the foods I avoided, because they were higher in fat or whatever it was. It's like, I just didn't need to be doing that. Like, I never cared that much about being lean. It was unnecessary. It was just labor and effort and decisions that were made that just didn't need to happen. 100%.
Speaking of increasing overall stress, actually, no, I'm not going to. Sometimes I used to hear about people doing different calorie amounts on different days. And this is just people with body comp sort of thing, like feeding them a bit more on their training days and stuff like that. I'm like, it's fucking stupid because it's just pain in the ass changing your calories like that. Having said that, lifestyle wise, having more calories on the weekend, is there any argument for that? Another option I want you to respond to is not for fucking people who are just lifting weights, but for example, someone like James who's getting into triathlon and stuff. Yep. Is there any argument for more nutrition on those days? Or is it the same fucking problem coming up where it's like, nah, eat it. You can use food from yesterday.
Thoughts? Yeah, so I remember the second point. Remind me what the first point was again.
So first one is I want to have more calories on the weekend. Talk me down from the bridge.
Look.
Or not.
It kind of comes down, it's kind of the way I think about mini cuts. It definitely can be a strategy that works. I just think the unfortunate reality is what that ends up looking like in real time is someone, Didier from 5 years ago, eats fuck all during the week just to eat way too much on the weekend. Like, it's possible that I could eat, 2,000 calories during the week, 2,500 the weekend, or 2,500 during the week, 3,000 the weekend. But it's unfortunately real world. It often doesn't happen. It goes from I'm starving myself to I'm eating way more than I did, and I probably should have just ate. Yeah. I probably should have just ate a regular amount during the week. And you know what? If my calories are a little bit high on the weekend, she'll be right. Like, what different story if we're in the very, very body composition focused world. But if that was the case, you're just going to be, you'd hope that you're going to be strict enough with your calories because you have a goal that matters to you. But if you don't really care that much about being lean, if you're going to eat a bit more on the weekend, crazy, just eat a normal amount during the week. Like, I don't think it necessarily needs to be programmed. It can just be more like, cool, don't come into the weekend starving. Don't come into the weekend having eaten nothing during the week that is pleasurable in any way, so that as soon as you see cookies, ice cream, burgers, you just want everything inside. Like, I think unfortunately that's, despite, potentially working, often that's just what it ends up being. To the second point, for example, we had James George, one of my co-workers here, him and Charlie preparing for a half Ironman at the moment. Like, I know I keep mentioning, like, if you're doing this, if you're doing that, like, the context matters. Most people do normal shit, so normal approaches are going to be fine. But the amount of training these guys are doing, like the length of the sessions, like it's not your average. Like they're getting some pretty long sessions in here. Just she'll be writing it is not going to be enough. Like, we need some specific preparation. As always, total intake matters most. Like, if you're carb loading the night before, but just overall across the week, you just haven't eaten that much food, might be majoring in the minors a little bit. It's still worthwhile doing, but total calories across the week is always going to be the first place to look. But on top of that, in those instances, the very specific instances of doing a really long energy burning, consuming session, having some more carbs the night before is going to be a good strategy. Having gels throughout, or Powerade, or whatever it might be, is a good strategy. And as a result, we are going to see higher calories on those days. But once again, the vast majority of the people aren't training enough for that even to be a consideration. Even if you're like me, lift 3 times a week, a couple of moderate runs a week. I don't need to, I'm not doing enough. Like even when I prepare
you're not smashing gummy bears in between sets?
About power rate. We'll go power rate.
We absolutely love doing this show. And one of the most exciting things for us is watching it grow because it means we can commit more time to it, as well as have access to better guests to bring you even more quality content. One of the most impactful ways you can help us grow the show is by shouting it out, screenshotting this episode, and sharing it on your stories to let people know that you're listening. Don't underestimate how influential you can be on helping us grow this show, and we appreciate it so much.
I want to actually get into that if we're off this topic now. Intra workout and for powerlifters, is it necessary? Should we be supersetting our bench with gummy bears? Like, is it necessary? Yeah, I want to hear your perspective.
I think it definitely, the amount of volume you do, and I mean, if you just want to do it because you like it, be my guest. But as to whether you really need to and are you missing out if you're not, I think the amount of time you're spending in the gym is definitely a big factor, as well as the length of the session. So if like for me right now, I've kind of condensed 4 days into 3 days. So even with me trying to be fairly time efficient, they're 2 to 3 hour sessions. Like I'm doing, 30 to 40 sets. Like they're big sessions. As a result, 90 minutes in, I probably want to be reaching for a power rate. Like I could get through without it, but I'm gonna feel a benefit. But if you're doing 3 sets of bench, 3 sets of squats, couple sets, like if you want to have some intra carbs, do it. But I don't think you're missing out big time by not doing that. I think just the total amount of the volume of training is definitely the key factor, and the volume of training more so than the time spent in the gym. Because there's plenty of people who spend 2 hours in the gym and just do an hour of work in 2 hours. So in that instance, once again, if you want to have a power rate, have a power rate. But is it vital? You'd probably get by without the amount of training you're doing, as well as did you run this morning? Are you going to run later in the day? Are you doing multiple activities in the same day? That when that is the case, that intra carb is definitely worth considering, just so we're fueling for the next session. But as I said, most people aren't in that. Most people are training once a day. Like that's just a reality.
I just remembered that it was you who ruined our tasty salts. It was through Jacob. Jacob was smashing his gram of salt for pre-workout in the little element packs, and you're like, "What the fuck are you doing, cunt?" Was it Didier that told you to stop smashing those?
Yeah. No, I was smashing them almost every day, and this is like, look, you're probably overdoing it there.
Look,
element stocks plummeted.
Nah, Element shouts out the Modern Wisdom podcast for slamming those and getting me on them. Although, yeah, I bought that many. They make you buy it in bulk. That I've still got so much left. But once I'm done, I think I'm going.
Have you got mango chili? I'll buy it off you.
Nah, I only got orange, watermelon, and raspberry. But
they're so good, holy shit.
Given Jacob's context, fairly, doing a bit of running, doing a bit of this and that, and fairly aggressively dieting. Maybe the daily element isn't something to be too concerned about. And I think the other thing to consider there is how much processed food do you eat? Because genuinely, like when Jacob's at his peak, kind of like dialed in with nutrition sort of lifestyle, he's not eating much processed food. And as a result, it's very unlikely that he's going to be over consuming sodium. So as a result, if you're eating the standard diet, plenty of takeaway, plenty of this and that, and then you're chucking element on top of that, settle down, man. Like that's a bit
by the way, for the viewers,
sodium.
It's an electrolyte formula.
Sorry. Electrolyte, yes, elements and electrolyte supplement, which is
come on. How big's the rock you're living under if you haven't heard of element by now?
Yeah, man, get around it, boys and girls. But yeah, obviously context matters. But yeah, for your average Joe, I don't think you need a daily element because you're probably getting enough sodium already, unless you have these super high training volumes. Consider it. If not, you should be right. Drink some water, salt your food, you'll be right.
It really did become that thing as soon as people were like, turns out it won't kill you. It's fucking good for you. Like I've just seen so many of those, like fitness, the keto people were the fucking worst. Just chugging butter, be like, "Oi, did you hear? It's good for you." And you're like, "Fuck, you fucking animals."
Man, that just actually brought up like
that sugar's poison. And it's like,
that's
and then they do it carbs and it's sucking down maple syrup. And I'm like, sorry, what was it?
Yeah, that brought a crazy memory. Like I think some sport teacher back in the day, PE teachers, like don't have more than one Gatorade a day. Like you'll just start bleeding gallstones out of your fucking just because like the full like build up of all that sodium or some shit, or I don't know what it is, but Yeah,
if he's ever like eaten tuna or anchovies, like fuck, watch out, man. Like if he's ever eaten olives, like forget about it. Like Jada's got nothing on some olives. Like
what's the premier tinned fish for weight loss? Because they're all pretty oily and fatty, right? Or is it just grand scheme of things, whole food protein source? It's still fuck all.
The connoisseurs.
Is this controversial?
Not controversial. If we want to go calorie consciousness, low calorie, tuna and water, which to be fair, I was off like my whole life, and I've actually started having it lately. It's not that bad. It's all right. Don't have it fucking plain, but bit of this, bit of that with it, you'll be right. But I like that you added that in there. Yes, tuna in water is the most low calorie option that you're going to find. However, like for me, I fucking love sardines. Brunswick sardines, like can't get enough. Like Sole Mare, got Jacob on those ones as well.
Shout out.
Are you a sardine guy too?
Yeah, major.
The like weight loss, weight maintenance, training, all this stuff. It's not just about calories. Like obviously it's about calories, but it's about enjoying the food you're eating. And for me, I would much rather have sardines in olive oil. I'm going to be more satisfied for that meal, and that's going to hold me off for later in the day. Yes, it has more fat, but obviously that fat isn't just calories. Like there are health benefits that come from sardines being a very nutrient-dense food. But even putting that aside, because it's an enjoyable meal, I'm probably going to get to the end of that meal and be like, you know what? That was enjoyable. That was satisfying. I can wait till dinner before I eat again. As opposed to eating a meal with 3 grams of fat and be like, oh yeah, so macro friendly, bro. But then it's just, I see XYZ food around me that I probably don't want to be eating, and it's just that much harder to avoid eating said food because it actually tastes good. Like, so that obviously it's more than calories. Yes, it's calories in, calories out, but it's also more than that. It's making yourself, live a life that enables you to make the choices you want to make and avoid the choices you don't want to make.
Nice. Do you reckon there's any chance of them bringing back the barramundi at Guzman and Gomez, or have you given up on that?
Look, we
never
made
tried that. Fuck. That would have been so good.
Yeah, that's a blast from the past. Yeah, for the uninitiated, we rallied the troops. We made a little video. They weren't having it, unfortunately. Yeah, we're done, unfortunately.
I can't remember what Guzman's response was, but I thought it was out of order. Like they just took the piss. And like, this isn't fucking funny.
Out of order. The barramundis don't work anymore.
No, they weren't having it. They weren't having it. We tried. We tried for the people.
I'm trying to think if I have any more bench press questions before I go in and hit my secondary/primary session of the week.
All right, Angus, I've got a question. How many sets per week are you doing? How many sets per week are you doing?
It's less than 10.
Okay.
Did you just get that up?
7?
No, it's
12.
It's about 9, 10.
We have to preface this by, do you care about benching more? If you don't, that is completely fine.
I do. No, I do. I do.
Okay. 12, get to 12. Let's get to 12. Give me 12 sets a week. And here's the thing. This is where the managing RPEs discussion can be good.
Throw a 6 in there for you.
Throw some 6 in there. Like there's clients I have who are hell-bent on the upper-lower split. I can't get them to bench more than twice a week. I'll give them 6 sets of bench in a day. They're not all high RPEs. We'll do 3 harder ones, 3, we'll pull 10% off the bar. It's still stimulative work, but on top of that, it's also just 3 sets of practicing the movement. So there's definitely something to that. Obviously, like at some point, the weight is light enough to where the practice is pointless, but give me 12 sets. Give me 12 sets, and I'm confident we will see some bench regression. And then send me some videos of you benching, and we'll sort you out.
I need to stop. To be fair, I asked too many questions about it. Half of why I'm questioning things is because I scorpioned it into a sandbar, and then essentially had to like start at the bar again, and then fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Contact injury.
We can make some suggestions, but I reckon you know enough to where that if you just bench 12 sets a week, I reckon we'll see.
We should have done a live bench coaching video analysis.
We'll do it next week.
Yeah, I'll get a lapel mic for future podcasts so I can do it like live from the bench.
Actually,
as I build my way up to 7-day SBD. It's the only way to make progress. If you're on SBD in 7 days, you're really just fucking atrophying 6 days a week.
It's actually funny that's even a talking point. Like obviously we're taking the piss here, but like even the conversation around like SBD days or not SBD days, like some people are all on it. We're probably not as much on it, but it's like, oh no, it's not even about doing it. It's about how many we're doing. Like, it becomes a different.
So I forgot that as well. Like, I'm so SBD pilled by this point, just as an observer of powerlifting. I'm like, oh, if you're not doing your SBD days, mate, you're not even powerlifting.
Yeah, obviously, you know, with our sample size of the people we work with, it's very rare that we'll find someone who's willing to do that consistently over time to the point where they still put an effort and enjoy training and don't just fucking quit. So that's my 2 cents on the matter.
One thing I will say, I did get my cheeks absolutely clapped at my first meet just because it was such a long day, and I was like, would SBD day have saved me? But probably not. It was probably just first comp day.
I reckon first comp day. It's one of the things, you've done it once, you'll know what to expect next time. Maybe we need some gummy bears, Angus, for that that's 5-hour day that you weren't prepared for.
Did you intro workout?
Maybe. Couldn't afford any gummy bears after fucking USAPL taxed me fucking $1 million to compete in a powerlifting event.
The USD will get you. No more USD. They're in the bin, unfortunately. But
yeah. You have to pay USD in here? Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, it's going to be this. Then you see your phone. You're like, wait, what?
The conversion
side up. Fucking some American fed. I'm like, what the fuck's doing? Hey, no, shout out to the USAPL. I mean, they're not even running the show in the US anymore. As far as, sorry, they weren't connected. They haven't been connected to the IPF for fucking ages. I forgot a whole chapter of that nonsense.
Yeah, they have the high level talent, but they still have they don't have as much of the high level talent, but they still have the numbers because they're just such a rusted on federation. Like, there's that many gyms, states. Like, they would have thousands of members. So yeah, they're still doing something. Is that
the federation that brought the elbow depth in at the bench, or was that?
So that's the IPF. So that's like big global overlords.
Yep.
Yeah. The people trying to make powerlifting an Olympic sport, which I can't express to powerlifters how much they just don't want that, despite some of them thinking that they do. And I'm like, mate, have you fucking watched the Olympics lately? I mean, it's good, but it'd be a shit show.
I think I think it's less powerlifters that want it, and it's more just the generation of the higher ups of the IPF who've been around there since like the 80s, who've just that's always been, whether it is or not, they say that's always been their dream. But like most powerlifters, like, yeah, it might be cool, but the stuff that's happening at the high level of powerlifting is pretty sick. Like, we don't need the Olympics for cool stuff to happen. Like, it might be cool, but like, I don't think the average powerlifter really cares that much, to be honest.
Sheffy is better.
Oh, Sheffield's insane. They've really nailed that format. It's fucking unreal. Yeah. And like Australia just did their version of one late last year, the SBD Cup. So it's one of those things. Someone does it, then everyone will follow suit. There's a lot of cool stuff happening.
What are some features around that? Like, what do they do on that? Like replays or something?
The money. The money's a big one. The money in the format. So you get money for breaking records, and then like individual lift records, and then the placing's done by how much you beat the world record total. So if you beat it by 1% and someone else beats it by 2%, like they win. And then there's big money. Like, it's like several tens of thousands of dollars, to where Agatha Shitko can do 7 SBD days a week because she's fun to, especially, you know, living in Poland. I doubt the cost of living is too bad there. Like, there's some
dude, that 50,000 pounds would go so far.
That'd go on,
I'm not trying to shit on Poland too much.
No, but 100%. Surely that's
shout out to Poland.
Shout out Poland.
Poland.
Oh, fuck. What was that? Oh, sorry. I did have one more powerlifting. I have 2 more powerlifting related questions. The guy who won the men's, what was his name? Kel. Did you see his rant about like he didn't get enough attention because he's not sexy enough or something he was saying? I feel like there's been plenty of not good looking powerlifters who've done well. Like, people don't expect, sexy people in sport always do better regardless. Like, I just didn't know what his point was. I'm like, mate, throw on some fucking makeup, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't actually see that, but I definitely think that would be a thing. And like, I think it's like, even as well. Like,
he broke the world record at Sheffy by more percentages than anyone else has ever done at Sheffy. But then his post about it on Instagram, or like the IPF's post about it on Instagram, didn't get as many likes as like
it's just
the girls went up.
It's just the nature of the beast. Russell Orhe has how many 100,000 followers? Like, he's a full-time influencer. People care about what he's doing. Like, he's also strong. Technically didn't do as good as you in terms of the comp, but your 10, 20, 30,000 followers is just not going to get the same eyeballs as, you know, powerlifting celebrity. That's just, fuck it. It's an age for the beast.
It's a weird one. So my other question, 300, when?
I'm going to compete next in November, and
Jesus
I'd be very disappointed if I don't hit it then. But we'll be attempting more. We'll be loading more. We'll be loading more than that. For sure.
Yeah, I was because it was just the reason that I bring this up. Obviously, 300 kilos is a fucking milestone, but I just remember this entire 6-month period, and like I was a silent member of this camp, but I stayed silent out of respect. But fuck, it was funny. Everyone telling you that you could have pulled 300 for like 6 months. You had so many like primary deadlift days where you would just rip like the fastest 280, 285. I think I saw you hit above 290 on one of those days. I was like, oh, 300 is a fucking
287. 287 push pull run. That was the one.
Yeah, was that the heaviest push pull run?
That was the heaviest.
But then he did miss it and got
such a G up. Fuck.
Yeah, and
was that validating when it slipped out of your hands?
I to a degree, yes, because I think at this point I have a fairly good unemotional read on where I'm at with my training. Self-awareness, yeah. So when people are like, and there's a lot of this in, I assume it happens in other sports, but in powerlifting, like there's a lot of just like toxic positivity of just like people G'ing you up, like, oh yeah, easy, you could chuck 20 more, and that's like, no, you couldn't. Like it's just,
I noticed that at my comp. I was done, and people were like, man, go out there, you'll PB. The atmosphere, I'm like, I feel dead. I feel fucking dead. Shut up. Like, just let me go home. I've always thought I will pull it when I'm ready to pull it. I was nearly ready to pull it, not quite. When I'm ready to pull it, it will land. It's like, man, do you think if I could have done it, I wouldn't have already? Like, I want to fucking deadlift. I don't know. You are an interesting guy. You seem like the kind of guy who might pull a 299 just to fucking show everyone that you're in charge.
Well, here's the thing. So on that day, I ended up getting third, and coming into the comp, I had my eyes on like, oh, let's try to get third. Like I could see the nominated totals, and like if we can get third, that'll be mad. And I was willing to load 297 to take third. In the end, my second attempt got me third, but I did not give a fuck. I was like, we're here to get bronze, 300 secondary. But then because the guy I was going against missed his third, I'd got third off my second, so we're like, all right, 300's going on. But I would have happily loaded. I would have loaded 280. Do you know what I mean? I was there for a reason. You don't go to nationals and fucking not try place as best as you can. Like you just disrespect.
Not here to fuck spiders, yeah.
Competition.
I forgot it was Nats as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I get what you mean. Like everyone's telling you, oh, it's there, it's there. I'm like, it'll be there when it's there. It'll be there when it's there.
Okay, one other thing. No, because you said November. Surely you're going to treat us to like a fucking end of financial year 300 kilo pull.
Well, here's the thing.
Are you just like, nah, I'm not deep in a hack squat cycle. Like,
I don't really do singles much. Like before nationals, so nationals was October. I think I did my first single on deadlifts sometime in October. Before then, I hadn't done a single on deadlift since push or run in April. That's just been a really good strategy for me. Like fairly submaxable, higher rep, like not really doing too many singles. So if I follow what's worked for me in the past, I won't do a single until probably October. Part of me thinks I might do like a little bit of a tester just to see how things are tracking. But if the rep work indicates that I'm moving in the direction that I need to be moving, I'm not going to do a tester. We'll just, it'll come when it comes. So, this is where I think people, this goes for everyone. Like people say, I want to do this number. I want to do that number. You know, what you can hit in competition is just a logical extrapolation of what you do in training. Like my best set of deadlift is 250 for 5. If you see me pulling 260 for 5, you best believe I'm pulling over 300. Like I don't need to hit a single, you know, to know where we're at with things. It's just,
that's good to have awareness like that. I think people get too attached to that one moment in that one time sort of thing.
Yeah. And like honestly, when I like probably around that push pull run mark, that was probably the strongest I ever was, because after that went on a holiday, came back, you know, trying to build back up and stuff like that. But like as I said, if my 5RM goes up 5 kilos, 10 kilos, like I don't need to do a single to know that I'm PB. Like I'll be pretty.
We're getting pretty stronger, confident. Yeah.
We're getting there, and I think a lot of people can take that. Like yeah, just look at the data. What's your training saying? Are we heading in the right direction? How do we compare to what we've done in the past?
Yeah, that's the kind of maturity you want in your powerlifting coach. We shouldn't pigeonhole you. I know you help people with goals that are broader than powerlifting. What's the ideal client avatar as we sign off?
Look. To be honest, I appreciate you not wanting to pigeonhole me, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of people I work with are powerlifters Or if they don't say they're powerlifters, their training looks like a powerlifter training. They like benching, they like squatting, they like deadlifting. A couple of them might do a bit of running here or there, but like, yeah, I'm more or less a powerlifting coach. Like that's what it ends up being for the most part.
Oh, if you want a man who can pull 300 or close to in charge of your strength training, hit the great man up. And
if you want a man who can miss 300, I'm your guy.
No, there's no way there's not a day in that 6-month period where it wouldn't have been there. I'm a truther about the 300 kilo deadlift from Dids. I'll never accept it.
Oh, you're like right. the moon landing was fake. You're like, no, Dids actually hit it. Did it.
You let it go on purpose. That's my conspiracy. Yes, you did it to assert dominance, and you're like, I know everything. I know everything.
Crazy.
All right, easy. Check out Dids. You can keep up with him. He doesn't post enough on the grid. Maybe he'll treat us to a few grid posts with his off season. But you can catch him on the Strength Culture podcast, which drops every Thursday. It's one of the best, second best podcasts in the nation.
Hell
Thank
yeah.
you kindly. Thanks for having me on. Thanks, guys.